Welcome back to Top 5 Auto Repairs. In today's topic, I'm going to tell you guys why your Serpentine belt keeps slipping off. The first common problem is going to be your automatic belt tensioner. So basically the belt tensioner is either going to be spring loaded, it's going to be hydraulic, or you're going to have to manually adjust it with a bolt. There are a lot of reasons why belt tensioner go bad. For example, the spring on the belt tensioner can become weak, or if it's a hydraulic filled tensioner, it might start leaking fluid. Or let's just say the pulley on the belt tensioner, it starts to become noisy due to a bad bearing, and eventually it's going to start to wobble, and that's going to cause the belt to slip off. The quickest way to test whether the belt tensioner is bad or not, it's going to be just pull on the belt. If you can easily pull on the Serpentine belt and the belt easily slip right off, then most likely the belt tensioner is no longer applying tension. Next, you want to get yourself a Serpentine belt tensioner tool, and you want to pull onto the tool. Basically, you try to get a feel of it. Basically, if you're pulling it down and it feels like you can easily pull on it, and it's very simple, there's a good chance that tensioner had already failed. The next common problem is going to be poor installation or just installing it wrong. For example, maybe you are routing the belt the wrong way, or maybe because you got the wrong engine size or different year, and you're not installing the belt properly. The next common problem is going to be when you're installing the belt, you're not installing it straight. So what I like to do is simply because the bottom part of the belt is hard to get to and the back side belt is hard to get to, you're gonna need something like this, a belt installation tool. So this is gonna help you get on one side of the belt for the top end and maybe one side of the belt on the bottom end. That way you can try to straighten out that Serpentine belt and get it as straight as possible. Because if you don't get it as straight as possible, and when you crank that engine over, it's going to cause that belt to slip off. The next common problem is going to be you got a bad pulley somewhere. For example, let's just say the AC compressor is wearing out and the pulley is failing and it starts to make that grinding noise and that loud bearing noise. If that pulley is bad, again, it's going to start to wobble and it's going to cause the Serpentine belt to slip off. What I like to do is I like to remove the Serpentine belt and I'm going to check each pulley. So basically you want to check the pulley on the alternator, you want to check the power steering pump pulley, you want to check the water pump pulley, you want to check the idler pulley, and so on. The goal here is that you want to spin each pulley and listen for abnormal noises. If you hear some sort of grinding noise or some sort of loud bearing noise, that pulley is going to be bad on that component. While you're at it, grab each pulley and wobble it. If there is excessive play, again, it is time to change that part. When you change a part, for example, the power steering pump, sometimes when you buy an aftermarket power steering pump, it doesn't come with a pulley. So that means you have to remove the old pulley and install it onto the new power steering pump. In this case, you're going to need a pulley removal and installation tool. And when you're installing the new pulley onto, for example, the power steering pump, make sure you install it correctly. Install it all the way onto the shaft until it bottoms out. If it does not bottom out, that means that pulley is going to stick out a little bit too much, and that's going to cause pulley misalignment. So the next common problem is going to be pulley misalignment. Again, pulley misalignment can be caused by not installing the new pulley on the new part correctly, or let's just say you recently had a part replaced. For example, let's just say you replaced the alternator. And let's just say the alternator is sitting right there on the alternator bracket. And let's just say there was a washer back there or some sort. And if somebody installed the alternator back and forgot to put back that washer, that's going to cause the alternator to go in slightly. Again, that's going to cause pulley misalignment. The next common problem is going to be power steering fluid leak or oil leak. I have seen this many times. So basically, if the power steering pump, let's just say the top end seal starts to go bad, it's going to cause a lot of power steering fluid to leak right out. And where it's going to go, it's going to go direct onto the Serpentine belt and cause it to become slippery. When it becomes very slippery, again, it will cause the Serpentine belt to slip right off. The next common problem is going to be maybe you just got a bad Serpentine belt. Let's just say you replace a component such as the alternator, a belt tensioner, the power steering pump, and so on, and you didn't bother checking the Serpentine belt. Maybe that is the issue. The Serpentine belt could be extremely worn, it could be missing rubber, it could be extremely cracked, and so on. So if the belt is severely worn and you crank that engine over, it's going to cause the belt to slip right off. The next common problem is going to be you got a bad harmonic balancer. So basically, this is a very bad harmonic balancer because it's missing that pulley right here. So at one point, there's a pulley right here, and it slipped right off, and the customer didn't even know about it. So if you got a bad harmonic balancer, there's going to be a pulley right here, and there's going to be a rubber right here that goes in between it, basically the rubber ring. And if that rubber ring becomes bad, it's going to cause that pulley to start to wobble, and eventually it's going to fall right off and make a very loud knocking noise when it hits the ground or it hits somewhere like on the frame of the vehicle or the chassis. The next common problem is going to be there is something wrong with that pulley. For example, you want to inspect each pulley, and let's just say at one point, let's say a component seized. For example, an AC compressor seized. When it is seized, it's going to cause all that rubber to burn, and eventually that belt is going to burn right off. So when a serpentine belt burns due to a seized AC compressor, it's going to cause all that rubber to burn onto the alternator, on the power steering pump, on the idler pulley, and so on. When that happens, you need to clean each pulley and check each pulley. You want to use a wire brush, or you can use a screwdriver, and try scraping each of the rubber off, because if you don't, that belt is not going to sit properly onto the pulley. Again, it's going to cause it to slip right off. While you're at it, make sure you inspect the pulley. Make sure it didn't crack or a piece broken off and so on. Because nowadays, manufacturers use inferior materials, and these pulleys tend to be extremely weak. They crack under stress very easily. So make sure you inspect each pulley. I hope you found that video useful. As always, thank you for watching, and subscribe to Top 5 Auto Repairs.